If you will thus then now, please display chart number 2. You will see the differences that have been made in this chart are representative of a few different things. You will see that in the central square, the left side has been blackened in and labeled with the letter A. This will represent the present person. In this case, it's a male because it's on the left. If it had been colored in on the right, it would be a female in present incarnation. If it had been colored in that small center square, you would know it is neither male nor female, but other. So we begin there. And you can see immediately to one side a small blue line. Each of the small squares, the tiny grid that is overlaid upon this chart, has been adjusted in this particular example to represent 10-year increments. It can be any increment at all. And it can vary from time to time, all the way even down to minutes and seconds, days, weeks, months, years, centuries. It can be adjusted in any way, shape, or form you so desire, depending upon the chart you are creating. But for now, in this example, we will begin with the idea of each of those squares being a decade, 10 years of your counting. And thus you can see that what it tells you by the blue line that exists on the side where the male is indicated is that, for simplicity's sake, it covers 4 squares. And thus you can say that in the present incarnation, this individual is age 40 years. So that tells you immediately you are dealing with a male individual, a male incarnation, 40 years of age in its present incarnation, in the reality in which it exists on earth. Now you can see, however, that farther away, above and to the left, a longer black line. Because this black line starts 2 squares above the present incarnation line, the side line, which represents the lifespan in present incarnation, because it starts 2 squares above, that basically is an indication that that particular incarnation was born 20 years after the present lifespan of this person, and extends for 100 years into the future, upline as we say. So that incarnation is male, because it's on the left side, and extends for 100-year lifespan. While lower on the right, you can see an example of what you would call a past life. Downline, we say, because it's all simultaneous, of a female that was born 130 of your years before the present lifespan of this male, but died 60 years before the present lifespan of this male was born. Thus then, this female lived a life of 70 years and is in relation to the present life in what you call the past on the female side. Now, if any of these lines had crossed into the sideline area represented by that band across the center from left to right, which represents the lifespan, the current lifespan of the present individual that we are doing the chart for, then that would mean that that life was actually being lived concurrently with the present life, would be what is called, partly at least, a counterpart. Because a soul can have incarnations in the same time frame, more than one. And that is how it would be represented on this chart, as overlapping the present lifespan band, the sideline band, to be understood to be incarnated concurrently, at least to some degree. And if this being had been, again, other than an earth being, then these lines would have extended out, would have been placed out in the outer rings. But what this shows you here is a variety of things and relationships that exist between these incarnations. And it can get much more complex than this. Again, we are only showing you a very simple slice of this idea, of this technique. And many of our charts may even show dozens, some even hundreds of these lifelines, what we call pinpoints, for it is a pin chart. So any particular life we call a pinpoint. But they stretch into these lines representing timelines. What we say upline, downline, what you call future and past, what you call the lifespan. Many of these charts can be filled with these lines. Many of them can overlap in a variety of ways. And this tells us a lot about exactly what the Oversoul is doing of this particular group of beings and how it is expressing itself along these different timelines. And it allows us to understand the relationship between all these different incarnations. And it tells us a lot about the energy of that Oversoul that all these lives are connected to. So we use these kinds of charts to determine these things as we perceive these incarnations. And it again can become much more layered even than this that you're seeing here, which is only representative of a slice. For you can stack these pin charts on top of one another, and this can represent the idea of even different parallel time streams altogether. In other words, alternate realities, alternate versions of this individual, alternate realities, alternate Earths, different experiences, different incarnations, even on alternate Earths. And so these pin charts can become three-dimensional, fourth-dimensional, fifth-dimensional. They can become, in that sense, very multi-layered. Now then, we do not use, in our upline time frame, of course, paper and pen, or even flat electronic pads as you do, to represent these things. No. We have in our time frame what we call nanoglass, nanocubes. For it is, if you imagine a cube of clear glass, or what would appear to you to be clear glass, a cube. And they can be of varying sizes, but most commonly they will be about a foot or two on each side. And in these nanoglass cubes, they are the equivalent of what you would recognize in your time frame as a computer. And in these transparent cubes do appear these pin charts in all their full 3-, 4th-, and 5th-dimensional glory, for us to be able to view from all sides and all angles and understand the relationships between the simultaneous incarnations that may occur in any one particular alternate timeline, any one particular alternate reality version, and also all of them together, and thus then give us a complete understanding of all the different simultaneous incarnations that the Oversoul may be extending from itself. And this is why these were originally called in the old lexicon Oversoul vector diagrams, which we have now streamlined in our time frame into pin charts. So you can begin to understand from this simple explanation how we, in the 33rd parallel, the team of 33, how all the cryptics can begin to view all these different parallel incarnations. And this is another ability that we have. For it is that many people, many beings will come to us because we have the ability to perceive in all these different parallel reality dimensions and alternate realities. We have the ability to trace, track, and perceive these alternate incarnations of any individual. And thus then it is uniquely our talent to form these pin charts for different individuals who come seeking this information from us. This is what we do. This is our calling. This is our nature. This is our ability. This is who we are.